what was porn like back then? And then how did it change, in terms of becoming more hardcore and more aggressive?
Yeah. So before, again, like you were kind of bound by various obscenity laws in various states. So you had to be careful about where you distributed your content. And in fact, like there's been many obscenity cases, but Max Hardcore is one who actually went to jail for obscenity. And it was because one of his DVDs that I think had anal in it ended up accidentally being shipped to, I think, Florida, which had much stricter obscenity laws, and so they got him on that. Now, it's kind of like the Wild West of porn,
Mm-hmm.
and you can sort of do whatever you want and get away with whatever you want, and you've got these really hardcore scenes coming out, right? Where I mean, I call it like the porn Olympics. It was almost like, how many things can you fit in your butt? And it's just kind of like ridiculous,
Yeah.
really. And there's all kinds of like really cringe websites out there, like facial abuse and like all kinds of stuff that it was just I mean, look, again, to each their own, and everybody's free to enjoy whatever they want between consenting adults, but it certainly didn't make the industry look good.
Yeah. Do you think it changed how people saw sex? Like what normal sex should look like?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that people are now, looking at it and it's more freely available to anyone, especially these tube sites are not like age gated, right? So now like
Hmm.
minors are able to
Well, they're
access it.
changing that, right?
Um, yes, it's changing state
By
by
state.
state,
Yeah.
but that's problematic also in itself for other reasons. Yeah, so now like people are watching these porn scenes and they're seeing, staged scenes with professional sexual athletes. And I don't say sexual athletes like lightly, like it is a lot of work to
Hmm.
do a porn scene. Like these people are pretty amazing. And they're thinking that that is, how I'm supposed to have sex. And unfortunately, with the lack of sex education in this country and the fact that people don't like to talk about sex, parents don't talk to their children about sex, or it's not something that anybody communicates about. They're learning it behind closed doors from what is essentially like supposed to be provided only for entertainment.
Right.
I mean, you don't learn to drive by watching The Fast and the Furious.
Hmm.
You shouldn't learn how to have sex from watching like Backdoor Sluts 15.
Gosh, yeah. Yeah. And I think that that's a really important thing that you brought up, that these are people who choose this profession and then they become very proficient at being able to produce these scenes. So what sort of, let's take a look behind the curtains, so to speak. Like what does it take for a person to have sex at that level?
I mean, you have to be in great shape. And a lot of it like let's be fair, a lot of this rides on the shoulders of the male performers, right?
Hmm.
They're like the unsung heroes of our industry. They do
Yeah.
so much work and people don't generally acknowledge that. But they stay in shape, they eat clean, and they just know how to do things like I mean, when you're opening up to camera so that you can see the penetration, you're essentially having sex sideways. It's kind of weird and awkward.
Hmm.
A lot of times, if you see these crazy anal scenes, like the girls stretch themselves out before the scene. They have a whole process that they go through the night before where it depends on the person. Everybody's different. Each porn performer who is at least like at a significant professional level knows their body better than almost anybody.
Hmm.
So some of them don't eat, some of them do eat, but certain things, they clean themselves out, they stretch themselves out. I mean, I remember once I shot Cherie DeVille for an anal browser scene, and she brought like a whole, like, in the dentist chair when they like fold out that kit with all the different tools.
Yeah.
It's kind of like what she had. It was just like dildos that went from smaller to bigger, and she just kind of like goes down the line, right, to
Yeah.
like prepare herself.
Right.
Lots of breaks,
Yeah.
lots of lube. There's also, various tricks that we do, like the hair pulling. A
Hmm.
lot of times, what the guy will do is he will hold the hair at the base tightly,
Hmm.
but he'll kind of push his fist into her head, so he's not actually pulling her hair,
Yeah.
and she is acting like her hair is being pulled. So
Yeah.
she's pulling her head back like he's pulling her hair.
Got it.
So there's like all kinds of like little tips and tricks in there. Some people really do get their hair pulled because they like to get their hair pulled,
Yeah.
right? So it just also depends on the person and what they're
Right.
into.
And then in some of these scenes last for, 30 minutes. Like,
Mhm.
are they literally having intercourse for that whole time, or are there breaks and they're coming back? Like, what does it look like on the other side of it?
It depends on the performers, it depends on the conditions, right? If you're shooting in, like, a really hot space, then we're probably gonna take a lot of breaks.
Yeah.
We're gonna turn the fan on, I mean, I've fanned performers down.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give you water, lube, like, all those kinds of things. So, yeah, it just depends on the scene. Sometimes they go straight through, which is crazy to me.
Hmm.
But again, like, sexual athletes, like, I'm serious when I say that. And other times there's lots of breaks, so it just depends. But the thing is that, ultimately we are making movie magic. When we go back into the scene, we're like, okay, you were in this position. We're going to start from a different camera so the edit looks seamless. I mean, the whole point is to make it look like it goes all the way through, but more often than not, there's breaks.
Yeah. What would you say the top 3 misconceptions are about performers?
That they're stupid,
Mm.
that they're on drugs, and that they're broken people. They're some of the most intelligent, creative, business savvy people I've met, especially now, right?
Mhm.
Especially, now that so many people can come in and create their own brand. And, some of these girls have gained really, notoriety and big names for themselves, and they've never shot for a studio ever. They've never had a producer tell them what to do.
Mhm.
So you have to be an entrepreneur really to succeed in the adult industry now. And so I think you're getting a lot of people coming in who are like, look at this as an opportunity to, become basically a marketing professional
Yeah.
in sex. And these girls work really, really hard. Now,
Mhm.
it's not to say like obviously not everybody's. I mean, look, we're all of us are broken in some way.
Sure.
And in
Sure.
every industry, there's people who do drugs and there's people who, have mental health issues. The adult industry is no exception whatsoever. But a majority of the people are pretty well balanced individuals. I really see them kind of like as renegades and like counterculture, like almost hippie type people,
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
they want to do something different. Maybe they have a higher sex drive than other people, and they come into the adult industry and they find like community there and they find people who love and accept them. It's a very close knit community. And it's interesting because I was talking to somebody who comes from like the mainstream Hollywood world, and they came to one of our parties, and they said that they were astounded at how everybody knows each other and how friendly everyone was with each other, and how he really felt like this genuine love and connection in the room between people.
Yeah.
And I'd never really thought about it that way. And they're right. Like we're like a family. I
Yeah.
don't know. I think there's something about being intimate with each other, right?
Of
That
course.
brings you closer on that level. But there's also something about performers who, I think that when you shed your clothes, literally, you kind of like shed your walls, and you open yourself up to this level of vulnerability that nobody else does. There's just kind of like no pretense left.
And you can be yourself,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You're already like
You're already
bare, basically.
exactly, you're
Yeah.
already out there, and I think that that brings like a level of freedom to like how you like move in the world
Yeah.
that I really like.
What about misconceptions about the industry itself?
Okay, so sex trafficking is like the biggest thing I hear. A
Mm.
lot of girls, when, they finally tell their parents that they're in, the first thought is like, oh, you were coerced into this, you were like sex trafficked into this. And like, it is not, obviously sex trafficking exists, right? I'm not going to
Right.
say that it doesn't. Like, we
Right.
all know that it does. But like, to the extent that which people try to suggest that sex trafficking happens in the adult industry is just not true.
Yeah.
And, when you say things like that, well, this girl could only be in the adult industry because she was sex trafficked. It's like you take away the choice and the agency from these girls, and you suggest that they couldn't have possibly gotten into it because they wanted to,
Mhm.
that they don't have like a backbone,
Yeah.
to like make decisions on their own, that women can't be inherently sexual creatures or exhibitionists or anything like that. That's one that I hear a lot, that it's abusive. Again, there's always bad actors that will always exist, but I would not say that the adult industry is abusive inherently in any way,
Yeah.
especially now. Like I
Yeah.
said, we have, very strict like set laws, boundary checklists, things like that. It's really important that people on set feel safe and feel heard. And I think every major company really like goes out on a limb to make sure that that's the case.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Was that always the case?
No. Now, the boundary checklist is something that existed in the kink community for quite a while, which makes sense, right?
Right.
When you're being tied up and gagged and flogged,
Yeah.
you gotta make sure that like they're on the
They
same.
know when you're going to stop.
Yeah, and then you have your save words and you know exactly what you're okay with and what you're not okay with. But it didn't exist in the porn industry at all. And I think back about, I was at the time. I was one of like the only female directors and photographers in the industry. There really wasn't anybody else. And as a woman, I thought that I could read the room and I could kind of tell if a girl like was uncomfortable or whatnot. And of course, I always told them before we started, like, you can call cut for any reason. You let me know, like, what are you okay with? What are you not okay with? Like, this was something just inherent in like the set culture that I cultivated from the start, because that's what I learned from my mom. But when you are asking somebody in front of like a room of other people, and that person knows that their paycheck relies on what they say, that the expectations of other people relies on what they say, you're not always going to get like an honest answer.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's hard even for the performer to articulate or even think about like what they might or might not be okay with, because maybe they've never tried something before. They didn't even think that that might be a thing.
Yeah.
So now that we have these like written out checklists that are very detailed, and we have these filmed consent talks between the performers with the director before the scene starts, I think that that has been like enormously helpful. And then performers don't feel like, they're like a real bummer if they say no to something in the middle of a scene.
Yeah.
When you're in that moment and,
Yeah. It's not always easy to speak up.
yeah, exactly.
Right.
So it's just good to get that out of the way in the beginning.
Yeah. And I think the other thing about well, I guess I'll address one misconception is I think that people think of porn directors as like sort of fringe, like why would you want to direct porn? So maybe you can address that.
Yeah, I understand that completely. I will say that, people have asked me like what keeps you in the adult industry, and I always say it's the people. Like it really is like a great small industry full of like awesome people that you really forge a connection with. And one of the big differences in working in porn that a lot of people really don't think about is your crew actually. So when you work in mainstream, you usually do these big long projects, that can last months,
Yeah.
years. And then when you go to the next project, you are probably hired by a different producer and you're going to work with different people. So you never really get to like have this same family of people that you work with.
Right.
Obviously, like big directors have like their certain cinematographers that they'll only work with, etc. But in porn, because as a director, you're also the producer and pretty much everything else, and the work is so consistent, you generally have your own crew members. So you work with the same people all the time. And this really fosters like a connection with your team. And it also makes it sort of like easier to work because now they know you, they know what you like, they know what you're after. And then also like the talent, you often end up working with the same talent. The talent knows your crew, right?
Yeah.
So it becomes very much kind of like a family in that way. There's also no real red tape in the adult industry. Like if you want to do a project in mainstream, you generally have to talk to the actors, managers, agents. You got to get funding. You got like, it's a whole thing, right?
Yeah.
I can decide that I want to do a scene with whoever, and I can call up a couple of people and I can literally like have it booked in 3 days.
Yeah.
And I can shoot whatever I want for the most part.
And do you look at it as like an artistic project? Like, is it like, do you feel that you're getting the same kind of sort of artistic liberties in terms of making something really unique that you would if you were doing a mainstream project?
I think it depends on who you're working for, right? Because there's definitely certain brands that, rely only on data. And they just want you to keep shooting your stepmom stuck in the washing machine because that's what people are buying. You know what I mean? And I think that can definitely get really like repetitive. So yeah, I think it depends on the company, the budget they're willing to give you. But I've definitely done some projects that I've really found like artistically fulfilling and I've really enjoyed. But, I mean, porn, like anything else, is fueled by a capitalistic society. So, at the end, they're looking for content that sells. Your audience isn't always as interested in the artistic integrity of your work as you might be.
Right.
So it's
Right.
sort of like a balance.
Yeah. Do you feel like what the audience wants has really changed in modern society compared to let's say 20 years ago?
I wish I could. I will say that there's definitely like more women watching porn. In fact, Pornhub does a really interesting survey of trends throughout the year. I mean, obviously they're the biggest adult site out there. They have the most amount of data, and they put this out every year. And they found that the amount of women watching porn in 2025 had increased like significantly. And also like the amount of people like watching trans porn has increased significantly. So we're seeing a lot like more diversity, and we're seeing more people interested in different kinds of content. But ultimately, the stepmom stuck in the washing machine still seems to be
That's so
leading the
interesting.
charge.
What do you think that says about society? I mean, like I don't I don't know. Obviously, I'm not the target demographic for stepmom stuck in a washing machine, but like I don't understand like I guess what does that say about people?
I don't know. I
Is it
mean,
just the forbidden that people are
I
drawn to?
I think the forbidden, the idea of being it's called so by the way, it's called free use porn. This is kind of like a new trend where
Mhm.
someone is stuck in a doggy door or a washing machine or under the bed or under the couch or in the doorway. I mean, it gets really ridiculous. So yeah, I think it's always the taboo and the forbidden, right? And I think that we have so many blended families now and like divorced families and people grow up with stepmothers and stepbrothers and stepsisters and all of that. So I imagine that it's sort of like art imitating life in a way.
If you like that clip with Holly Randall, make sure to check out the full episode right here.